I haven't drank an afternoon coffee in forever. And
You
then I
know.
had one yesterday, and now I'm having another one today.
I saw a test that showed they did an MRI scan of someone before and after drinking coffee.
Yeah. It's hot.
Yeah, you should be careful. So they did the test before, and you see all kinds of brain activity.
Yeah.
And then after they drink the coffee, get this. I want to remember this right. But they said there was I want to say a 45% drop in blood flow to your brain after drinking coffee.
What?
Yeah, I didn't get it at all. But like you see the scans, and it's like here it is before, and you see like it's all lit up, like they do brain scans, right? And then they did after, and it was just like all blue, like all the blood flow had gone from the brain.
Weird.
And the doctor said this is about 45% drop, and it was just like, whoa.
Hi, welcome to Enter the Bunker, where we launch you into thriving. Each week we talk about a different virtue that can be used as a building brick to build your own personal bunkers. We share personal stories, as well as tips and tricks to help you thrive instead of survive. So sit down, relax, and enter the bunker.
Today we're talking about the building brick of honesty. And honesty, of course, is the best policy, according to George Washington. So today, of course, being honest, we are going to talk about that today because as a building brick, everything else in terms of trust relies on it, and it permeates every part of your life. So it's always something that everyone can work on because truth is, no matter how honest you are, there's always opportunity to be able to improve on it.
So true. We talked last week about how wisdom was, and this was to Thomas Jefferson, but wisdom was one of the number one building bricks. Mm-hmm. And he says that honesty follows right behind that.
There you go.
Yeah. So that's kind of cool
wisdom,
how we did it too.
Honesty.
Yeah. All right. So the meaning of honesty is being truthful, sincere, open, and genuine, the confidence to be ourselves. That's the meaning of honesty.
That sounds about right. Now, truth is that we can be that, but are other people?
It takes some work.
It does.
It does. It takes some work.
Yeah.
This is another quote. So we already said one quote, which was honest. Actually, I didn't know that George Washington was the first president ever.
You didn't know that?
No.
Until just now?
Right now.
Wow.
Like, that's crazy.
Yes.
So how long ago was that?
That was like over 200 years ago, I believe.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay. Didn't he invent something too?
No, I think you're thinking about Thomas Edison.
Yeah, maybe. Okay. Anyways, another quote that we have here
Benjamin
is,
Franklin too. That's probably who you're thinking of.
That is who I think I was
He
thinking
was involved in politics too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Honesty has a power that very few people can handle. That one's by Stephen Atchison. He's an author / blogger. Another one here is honesty is often very hard. The truth is often painful, but the freedom it can bring.
Let's do that again.
Honesty is often very hard. The truth is often painful, but the freedom it can bring is worth the trying. And that was from Fred Rogers. He's a children's entertainer.
There you go.
It's kind of interesting seeing all of these people and the quotes that they made.
Yes.
Like, I feel like that one can be directed towards kids. And then the author and blogger. Yeah. You read one.
Honesty is the first chapter in the Book of Wisdom. Thomas Jefferson. And that's who you're probably thinking about because he was the third president of the United States.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, that could be it too.
Yeah.
And honest hearts produced honest actions.
Yeah.
That's from Brigham Young, a religious leader and founder of the Brigham Young University.
So listening to all these quotes,
Yeah.
think about what they're saying, right? So honesty has a power very few people can handle. That sounds scary.
Yeah.
Honesty is
Very
hard. Oh boy.
Scary.
You know, like,
Yeah.
and so it's like first chapter of wisdom. How many people like actually walk with, actually have wisdom, right? And of course, honest hearts produce honest actions.
I think that one.
So it's really like, when you think about it, honesty sounds like something that sounds so simple,
Yeah.
but at the same time, it's very difficult for a lot of people. And I think that's because when it comes to honesty, I think like even just being honest with people about certain things, that because like the truth is like we don't like to have confrontation,
No.
right?
No.
And when you need to be honest, sometimes you end up being a coward, is what it is, right?
Yeah.
It's just like, it's I know it's sounding harsh.
Beat around the bush.
Yeah, you beat around the bush.
Yeah.
You kind of like you have too much fear, and you end up just backing away and making up an excuse,
Yeah.
right? Because you know what? That's easy.
What's the
right?
saying too? Like when you're not giving the whole story, you're topping it with cherries, or what's the
Not giving a whole story. We top it with cherries.
no. Do you know what I'm thinking of? No.
No, I
probably
have
not.
no clue. You're making a Kellyism here, I think. Yeah.
No. It's actually okay. I'll try to think of it through while we're talking, but
Okay.
sugarcoating it.
Sugarcoating it.
Yes.
That has everything to do with cherries, obviously. Yeah.
It must have been your red sweater. I was thinking cherries.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah, I find, because like you said, confrontation, people don't like that. So instead of giving the honest truth, they'll sugarcoat it.
Yeah, and you know what? The truth is that when you talk to people that way, they sense it.
Yeah.
Right? There's no getting away from your body language.
No.
There's no getting away from your tone,
Yeah.
right? Like you can try to sugarcoat things like you said, but then when people pick that up, they feel like, okay, like I'm being manipulated,
Yeah.
or you're not being completely honest with me. So I'm just going to like not like you right now, right?
Yeah.
And they may not exhibit that, but there's something deep down inside where they're just like, you know,
Yeah.
and then they just and then it just like it wears away at trust, right?
Yeah,
And then
big
you end
time.
up and then you just end up with like either you just end up not respecting the person, expecting them to not be truthful with you, so you expect them not to be honest, and then when that happens, well then now you've lost trustworthiness, right?
Yeah, and you might like, it could be something like we talked about mentors in previous episodes, and like you could want this person to be a mentor, but then come to find out they're not being honest with you. You're not going to want them as like your mentor. You're not going to want that person teaching you things, because are they telling you the truth?
Yeah, you don't know if they're just sugarcoating it all
Yeah.
the time, or if they're actually giving you what you need to hear.
Exactly.
Right? And that's why it's hard.
Yeah.
Because they need to be able to have enough courage to just be straightforward and honest with you and just say, look, you know, this is what's happening, or this is what you need to know, or whatever it might be, right? But the fact is that that's hard, you know, and it's just because it's usually because of whatever we've built up in our heads about how we expect the other person to react to what we're going to say, right? And if we can be able to take an approach which is, so I want to refer to what's called nonviolent communication. I think I've talked about this before.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a book
So,
too, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a book called
Yeah.
it's called Nonviolent Communication.
Yeah.
It's NVC. So
Yeah.
so nonviolent communication. The whole idea is to separate ourselves from judgment,
Right.
right? To not think in terms of judgments, but look at people and understand that there's only two things that really matter to everybody. It's how are they feeling, and what are their needs,
Right.
right? Because the feelings are real to them, the needs are real to them.
Yep.
So, what are their needs, and how can we meet? How can we be able to acknowledge their feelings?
Right.
And so, if we can be honest in that way without associating things like the judgment that might be associated with whatever it is we need to talk about,
Yeah.
then then it's a nonviolent way of communicating. So then it takes away those prospects of, oh, that person's just going to, like, as soon as I say this, oh, they're just going to lose it, and they're going to blow up, and they're just going to end up hating me, and I'm going to, that sort of thing. But then if you just have a real heart to heart, the truth is that because it's so hard, most of the time we don't do it. But most of the time, if you look back in your life when you actually did it, how did it turn out? It turned out really good. It ends up that the person appreciated you actually being honest with them, because guess what? In this world, not a lot of people are.
Right.
You got everybody lying to you. You got the media lying to you. You got politicians lying to you. You got everybody lying to you. Right? So it's like, finally, somebody's going to be honest with me, right? And as soon as that happens, then it's just like, thank you, needed that. And if you can do that in a way that's nonviolent, and communicate the feelings and communicate the needs of the other person, not yours, but be honest about yours, then you can then have real honest conversations. And when you have honest conversations, that completely changes the dynamic, and you don't have to worry about whatever they may like have those blow-ups that you're afraid of. But because you're communicating in a nonviolent way, you can work through those
Yeah.
in a way that doesn't damage the relationship.
Right. And you were saying it makes them feel better when you're honest with them. You were saying that.
Yeah.
But I think it can also make you yourself feel better too. Like in the end, you know that you were honest. You knew you just had a nonviolent communication conversation. Ooh, that sounded cool. And yeah, you can just feel good about yourself. You're like, it might have been hard, might have been scary, but you went out of that comfort zone, that bubble that we talk about, and it's going to get easier and easier every time that you do that.
Each time you do it, yeah.
So like we were saying, honesty can be scary. Being honest with yourself and also being honest with somebody else. What better time to talk about honesty than the week leading up to Halloween?
Yeah.
How do you think honesty and Halloween intertwine?
Well, Halloween is a time when we're actually dressing up to not be ourselves.
Yeah, so complete difference.
We're trusting taking candy from strangers.
Yeah.
So hopefully they're honest.
Yeah.
But actually, truthfully, that's actually. So I learned about actually that whole myth about candy from like Halloween and needing it to like being safe in Halloween and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that all traced back actually to an urban myth from a long time ago that it really never happened. Like there was one case where that whole urban myth traced back to a single family where some children had gotten into some candy, but this family, the parents were doing drugs, and the candy they got into were drugs.
Oh my gosh.
And so then it spun out this whole urban myth of candy during Halloween, strangers are putting strange things in your candy, and there's, there could be something.
But now that actually happens.
What do you mean?
People put stuff in kids' candy now.
When have you heard these reports?
Like last year in Halifax, a couple of places. There was
Where?
like razor blades.
Come on. You believe this?
It was on the news.
Who lies to us, did I just say, right? So,
But that's what you read about. Like, that's what I remember hearing.
yeah, but statistically speaking, it hasn't happened.
Yeah.
Like, there's just, the danger isn't there.
Honestly, if my kids were really scared of that, because you do like to be aware,
Yeah.
make them aware, like that is a possibility. But if my kids were ever nervous, I would just offer to take a bite of each thing for them before they eat it.
Sure. You're doing it for their own good.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm just being honest here. Yeah. So if you were to ask the next person you see on the street what their top 3 virtues are, honesty is most likely to be mentioned.
Yes.
I find that actually kind of hard to believe.
Why?
I don't know. Like, what would your top 3 be? So if I came up to you and asked you what your top 3, building bricks, we'll say, virtues, because that's what technically these are. Would honesty be one of them?
Well, honesty is just the easiest one for people to come up with because it's the one that's most talked about, because
That's
it's the one
true.
that people lack in their lives that
The
they want
most.
so much.
Yes.
Right? And
Do you
because
think people are being honest when they say honesty?
I think so. I remember reading an article about how honesty is like, it was something like it's the sexiest thing about a relationship or something, or a man being honest is like super sexy or something like that. I don't know.
Interesting.
It was in that vein, that the whole idea that honesty was something that was actually very attractive. And it's true, because again, how much BS do we have in our life? How many times are people lying to us all the time that when you come to somebody who's actually think about every movie where there's like, the dude who's like just totally out there. Actually, there's a movie, I remember now. What's it called? Dude, I Love You. No. Dude, I Love You?
Dude, where's my car?
No, not Dude, Where's My Car? It's like Buddy, I Love You. Buddy, I Love You. I think that's what it's called. I love you, buddy. That's
I
it.
love you,
I love you.
bro.
I love you, bro. That's
I
it.
think it is.
Yeah.
I know what you're
I love you,
talking
bro.
about. Yeah.
Right? And the reason why they ended up becoming such good friends was because the one guy was just so blatantly honest about everything, and the guy was totally attracted to this guy
Yeah.
who was just being honest, right? And they were just friends, right? But the truth is that it just led to a very real friendship,
Yep,
right?
it did.
So when and you think about all the movies where there's always that character who's just like, who's another one? There's another one I'm thinking about right now that's
I've been
on the tip of my
watching
tongue.
You lately. It's called You.
Okay.
It's about a couple. They're a little out there. They're murderers.
Okay.
But they're very honest with each other. Like when one murders one, the other one's always there to help clean it up.
That's what we need. Yeah.
But it's nice. Like I'm addicted to the show, but maybe that's why. Maybe it's just because they're so. But they actually hide a lot from each other too. But so I guess maybe not.
Yeah. But they're being honest about things that normally you
Most
wouldn't
people would
expect people
hide.
to.
Yeah.
People would expect to hide, right?
Yeah.
And so why is it that's so attractive?
Must be because of the honesty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's something that we're attracted to. It's something that we want more of in our lives. And it's something, truthfully, is quite rare, you know, so it's got scarcity.
Why can it be so hard? Why is it so rare?
Why is it so hard?
Yeah. And why is it so rare? Why is it such a rare thing?
Because truth is difficult. Like being honest about things is difficult. It's just because oftentimes we think that if we hide like what's real, that we're going to have an easier time.
It'll be easier in the end. sort of
Yeah.
thing, but really, it's going to be harder in the end.
Yeah.
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 We talked about Tactful a few episodes ago, or Tact, and as I'm learning about honesty as well, I really relate that to tact, because when you're being honest, you've got to put tact in there.
Yep.
So that way you're giving the right message.
Yeah.
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 So like again, your critical, nonviolent communication.
That's right.
Yeah, same thing.
That's all about tact. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Why can it be so hard to hear honesty?
I think it's because we are so.
Hurt our feelings.
It may hurt your feelings, but at the same time, it requires us to actually maybe hear something that we didn't want to hear,
Yeah.
right? And at the same time, we're so used to being lied to so much. Like, I think that
I think that's it.
there's such a
more
lack
so.
of it
Yeah.
that when we're faced with something that's real, it really grabs us in a way that we're not prepared. You know, we're not ready to deal with something honestly.
Yeah.
And so what do? We put it aside. We make
Beat around the
excuses.
bush.
We run around the bush. We beat around the bush. You know, all this kind of stuff, right? And then just kind
Sugarcoat
of sugarcoat it, shove it off. You know, it's just like it's not, you know, all this kind of stuff. So we do that, and I think that that's because again, it requires us actually being real with what's happening, and it's just difficult to do that. It's just human nature. Like it's unless we're used to that, unless we're building that building brick constantly, where we actually recognize when there's an honest moment and see it as an opportunity to be like, aha, you're like, now, okay, he's being honest. Okay, I don't like this. It doesn't feel good. I'm outside my comfort zone. You know, so like I better just like let's step up and let's like really dig into this, right? And as long as you can take an attitude of like this is an opportunity to be able to grow,
Yeah.
then it's not so hard. Truth though, most people don't like to do that.
And that's too what I was thinking. Like, yeah, the honesty may suck to hear the honesty, but if you take a step back at the end of the day and think about that and you learn from it, it's a good thing.
Very good thing.
Yeah. And whether you still feel 100% about it or not, as long as you're taking something from it and applying it, I think you're going to grow from it.
You will grow from it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think there's more honesty in society now or in the past, say 50 years ago?
50 years ago. 50 years ago wasn't very long ago. So 50 years ago,
Go 100 then.
because 50 years ago we had media, we had propaganda. I mean, there was the propaganda behind Cold War,
Yeah,
you know, and all this
yes,
kind of stuff,
yeah.
right? And we know all about it. You know, we know all about the kind of psyop stuff they did, and it just wasn't. It was very similar to
Slowly
today.
preparing you for today's world.
Yeah, really. But in terms of like how people were, I think there was less honesty in the past because there was
Yep.
a lot of traditions and a lot of cultural norms
Yep.
that really forced people to be much
their mouth
more
shut.
conformed.
Yep.
Right? It's like
That's
be
better.
conformed, you know, go along to get along,
Yeah.
you know, kind of attitude. And if that's and if you step outside of that, there is real hell to pay.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
So when you're in that kind of environment, it's really difficult to be honest. Like
Right.
it's like it's extra difficult. It's more difficult. Now today, we have almost a cultural shift in terms of a celebration of diversity, right? In some places, I won't say everywhere, but there is a sense of like, live and let live. Right. Rather than go along to get along, it's live and let live. So it's like, that it's almost like they have the right to, voice their opinion and all this kind of stuff, right? It's like, and the truth is that we have freedom of expression here in Canada, right? And that's something that's new. Wasn't there 50 years ago.
Okay.
Surprise. It's true. It wasn't here 50 years ago.
Actually, I was reading this list of stuff that had just come out like within the last 50 years or something, and it blew my mind. The stuff that I thought was already invented or was out there and like certain laws and stuff like that. Anyways.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think over time we have had the opportunity to become honest. However, we still have difficulty in taking that opportunity to be honest. I think a lot of people still go along to get along. They want to conform because they don't like having to face something that's honest. So like if you meet somebody and they tell you something that is honest and is truthful, but it might be outside the norm, now you're going to be in a situation where you're just like, I just don't want to hear that. I'm going to block that out.
Yeah.
And because it's very hard for someone to finally be honest with you when you're just going along with whatever else.
It's also hard to hear somebody lying to you all the time.
Yes.
I think I'd rather on the hard truth than lies.
What the truth is but lies are just, they're so sweet, like you said, like they're just sugar coated to be everything you want to hear. Like it's that, like they'll say the things that they want you to hear because they know that you're wanting to hear this, you want to hear that, so they'll just say all those things. It's just like not to razz on politicians, but they'll say all the things people want to hear to get them to want to vote for them, right? And it doesn't matter. They will they know. They'll just they even do the scientific polls and everything to be like, okay, we know if we say these certain things, we know these people are going to respond to that, so we'll say that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not being honest, right? But then the thing is that when people when they go out and they say these things, people like to hear that. They like to be lied to because it's like, okay, so that's my guy because he's saying everything I want to hear, right?
Right.
It has nothing to do with honesty, right?
Do you, and finally, before we end the episode, I have another question. Do you think that being too honest can harm at a relationship between you and somebody?
Can being too honest harm a relationship between you and somebody?
Yeah.
Absolutely, 100%.
If the person can't handle it, I feel like.
Yeah, because it's going to require both of you growing
Yes.
to be able to handle that honesty.
It's going to be requiring you being tactful while giving the honesty.
Yeah.
And then how they react to that.
Yeah, and on top of that is that, it's one thing for you to decide, it's one thing for one person in a relationship to decide, you know what, we're going to be honest all the time, but that does not, then if the other person isn't en route with that, you're not in the same place all the time, then it's going to end up just hurting one and then the other thinking like, oh, that's great, we're being honest all the time, this is fantastic. But the truth is that you need to have tact, like you said, and you have to, and there's a time and place for honesty.
So true.
And so,
don't do it out in public and embarrass somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So I think you can cause a lot of harm with just being honest that way. But then I don't even know if you would call that honesty now that I think about that. I think there's a difference between, some people would call that, there's one thing to be honest, and then some people call it brutal honesty.
Yeah.
Where they'll just they will completely ream on you and just be like, hey, I'm just being honest.
Yeah.
And then that's their defense.
Yeah.
Right? As though it's
yes. They're I just did something good.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
But that's, it's one thing to be honest, but it's another to attack somebody in a way that is meant to harm.
Right.
Right? And so, being truthful, sincere, open, and genuine is not where you're trying to destroy somebody else and make them feel like crap.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
That's not being honest. So then, I get it. All right, so guys, stay tuned for part 2 on how to lead an honest lifestyle.
Yes, how to lead an honest lifestyle, how to do it.
Woo woo, let's go.
Thank you for listening to Enter the Bunker. Make sure to follow us on Instagram where you can share your story and also look at behind the scenes of how we make our podcast. You can watch the video version of this podcast on YouTube by simply searching Enter the Bunker. Tune in next time as we launch into thriving.